Well, hello people, and welcome to some more Cities Skylines 2 coverage. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm definitely not working while I'm on holiday, and the new dev diary is out, and it's all about the simulation and traffic AI and how things work. So let's move through the video together, and then we'll have a scan over the developer diary, shall we? There's a great shot here of a pedestrian street too, just as we go through the trailer. These hedges on the right are changing height. They also kind of look like they're part of the campus building, but we have seen these hedges elsewhere in the trailer too. I know this is traffic AI and simulation, but I had to notice the hedges. So at this point in the video, the lady confirms that how people now move around the city is based on something called pathfinding costs, and they're going to weigh these up. So there's an interesting shot here as they're zooming down this highway. Just keep an eye on that truck in the distance and just watch what it does. Zoom. So it's not a flawless system yet, is it? It would seem. So at this point in the trailer, the lady confirms that it is now based on something called pathfinding costs, which have sort of 4 different levels to consider, which is interesting. So this is a pretty interesting scene right here. If we watch as this truck passes over the intersection, just sink in a little bit. It's probably a little bit pedantic to notice that, but does sink into the intersection a little bit, and that seems to be one of those larger sort of pre-made intersections, so there is a little bit of clip in there, it would seem. So now she starts talking about the pathfinding costs and how there's sort of 4 different levels to it as to how people would navigate around the city. The first one being time, which is very much how citizens moved around in Cities Skylines 1. They would often take the quickest, most direct route there. So this overhead here is pretty interesting. Again, I'm kind of noticing more about the city as time goes on. Up in the top left here, it seems to be a man-made lake, if not with some very harsh terrain tearing against the edge of that pedestrian road. We can't tell from this perspective whether or not that's an inlet from the river, or if it is indeed man-made, but it does sort of look like a man-made lake, doesn't it? So I'm hoping that confirms some sort of water tool in the base game. You can also see some really harsh terrain sort of jank, can't you, on the top left there, just on the edge of that pedestrian road. I know I shouldn't notice it at this point, but can't help it. So this is an interesting shot. We can see some traffic backing up for no particular reason. I would have thought this might have been a car crash, but I can't seem to have seen a crashed car. It just seems to be moving very slowly for no reason. There's also some pretty gnarly dimensional tearing up in the top left here as well, around what seems to be tighter road curves. Hopefully that's just a beta bug or an alpha bug, whatever version of the game this was recorded on. But interesting that that dimensional grey tearing does seem to be there. So this is an interesting shot. There's the car park right up against the edge of the emergency room. I'm not sure if that's part of the hospital asset itself or if that's been placed, but it kind of seems a weird place for a car park right there next to what looks like an ambulance bay. So this is interesting. So for the first time, they pull up some of the parking configurations, and we can see for the first time that they do adjust the parking fee. We kind of speculated on that last video, didn't we, when parking costs were mentioned in the developer diary. You can also see its upkeep per month, which is 1,500, which again, everything sort of seems more realistically scaled with the budget now, doesn't it? And then we can also see comfort as well. So in the developer diary itself, they actually go on to confirm that teens will try and save money, adults will try and save time, whereas seniors are going to try and go for comfort. Comfort for me, I'm going to take at this stage to essentially mean convenience. I don't think comfort is quite the right word to describe it, but I guess it's proximity to commercial signature buildings now, parks, etc. But I am a fan of the fact that we can't adjust the cost of parking. That is quite nice. So this is a cool shot here too. We get a really good variation of all the different vehicles here. There's little smart cars, kind of saloons, this sort of old 50s, 60s style truck up in the front. Also, it looks to be like a Mustang, a van. So really happy to see all these cool new cars. And you can also see as well the angled parking here as well, which leads me to believe that we can custom place car parking, because everyone we've seen so far has been manually plopped like a big square. Unless this is part of an asset, in which case the argument doesn't matter. But I like to see that not all car parks are just big squares or rectangles. There's different shapes to them here. So at this point in the developer diary, the lady mentions that fuel is also a consideration, meaning that I guess Sims are going to have to go and pay for fuel, which maybe means gas stations are going to play a much more realistic role. And I also hope that might tie in with whatever oil industry we are able to develop in the base game. That would be a very cool mechanic. I'd be happy to see that added to the simulation. Great notice here as well. Look as the bus drives along the highway here. Totally accurate reflections in the windows. That is a massive step up from what they were in Cities 1. Really happy to see actual reflections in the game. So at this point she mentions that behaviour is the final pathfinding cost, I guess is what they're referring to them as. And this is how much risk they're likely to take in order to get to their destination. And we see this smart car here in this clip take this gnarly U-turn across the tram line here. It is cool as well though that in this scene the tram line is broken. You can see that, so they can actually make the U-turn. And we saw that. We can also see here that Lex Darby has chirped that this city is incredibly noisy. That's not something I like to see. That for me means that that stupid noise pollution mechanic hasn't really changed from Cities 1. I'm really hoping that it has. But in this clip we can see that this taxi that's leaving the highway actually sort of sees the traffic on the slip lane and thinks, no thank you, I'm going to stay on the highway and go hopefully a faster route. Or maybe it's not faster, he just doesn't have to wait in the traffic. But cool that it can seamlessly adjust on the fly like that. He's not going to wait on the Garland Highway slip ramp, he's coming down Spring Highway instead to avoid that traffic, which is cool. Much more realistic looking police car here as well. And something I noticed in this clip, and hopefully you notice as well, is how much better did the sirens sound. It's not got that stupid wailing siren from Cities Skylines 1 anymore. They're much more realistic. I'm happy with that. So here, this is super cool. We actually see our first instance of a car crash. We've got a car over here on the left on its side. There seems to be a van that's also just drifted off onto the pavement, and then over in the back there, just behind the fire truck, it seems to be a very flat, squashed car. Almost like it's been squashed by like a hydraulic press, it's that flat, which I thought was pretty funny, but really cool to see a car crash scene here. I've been quite keen to see some gameplay of this. You can you can see that really flat car over there in the corner as well. And this is really cool. We get our first sort of live action look at one of the traffic accidents. This little yellow smart car number has just skidded off in the rain, which is really cool, isn't it? How cool is that? There's going to be some fun to be had with that mechanic, isn't there, I imagine? So she goes on to confirm that things like wet roads, extreme weather and time of day road condition will all influence the likelihood of traffic accidents, which is really cool. The fact that it isn't just some random event that some kind of RNG is dictating across the city, is actually based on what you're doing and how your city behaves, is very cool. I'm really happy to hear that. And also bonus shots, some really nice nighttime shots as well here from New Dollarton. Really nice, especially this one too, with the bridge and that big building on the left. Look how nice that looks. I really want to know what that is. And also as well, what appears to be in the bottom right here, this looks like some sort of ferry harbour or ferry terminal, which we haven't seen before. So here we get a shot of one of the road maintenance vehicles driving around, which looks amazing, so much better than the Cities Skylines 1. But it's pretty self-explanatory. You know, if you want to reduce the risk of accidents, make sure that your roads are kept in good condition. There's not too much to it. It's pretty easy to sort of keep on top of by the looks of it. I guess it depends how expensive these particular road maintenance vehicles are. So she goes on to say that traffic AI has improved so much that larger populations are now possible. She doesn't really give a specific number, but apparently because of the improved traffic AI, they are now more possible. So here they come into the roads info view, and we can see parking facility availability, where we can see 610 are parked out of a possible 1,512 capacity, so they're well in the green with their numbers, which is very similar to how we look at information in Cities 1. And when they do actually come into this view, you can see little keys pop up all over the map to indicate locations of parking. And then there's also the wrench over the road, which is obviously indicating road maintenance depots. But it's cool that you get that parking breakdown like that. That is very similar to Traffic Manager's advanced parking AI functionality, where it shows you, you know, what buildings in an area perhaps need more parking. So I'm really happy that it's such a fleshed out mechanic like that. Very cool. So now they come onto the traffic view, and a lot of $2's roads turn red. So for those of you that are familiar with my channel, I don't care for the traffic flow in Cities Skylines 1. It is possibly one of the most meaningless stats in the game. Some really nice shots here as well of New Dollarton. Again, we can see on the left some more really nice industrial buildings. They look really cool. Very industrial evolution themed, aren't they? So that is where the video ends. Let's now dive over to the developer diary and see what we think of that, shall we? So now let's look at the developer diary itself. So like we talked about in the video diary, Cities Skylines pathfinding, Cities Skylines 1 that is, was based on proximity. We all know this, of course, playing Cities Skylines 1, but then it goes on to confirm that is now based on pathfinding costs, of which there seems to be 4 factors of those. So pathfinding cost time is an important factor. So again, that's kind of, similar to Cities 1. They're going to seek the quickest route to get to their destination. When considering only the travel time, a small road can be shorter, but travel speed is slower than the longer highways. So it then goes on to say, when considering only the travel time, a small road can be shorter, but travel speed is lower, meaning that the time would ultimately be longer. So in that case, the agent, in which case I think agent is referring to the sim, if you like, or the subject, will choose the highway in most scenarios if it is a quicker route, even if it is a longer road. So then it goes on to say that comfort is the second pathfinding costs, which includes planning the route to be as smooth as possible, avoiding necessary turns at intersections, as well as finding suitable parking or suitable public transport as well. So this is quite interesting as we get onto this section here. So we talked about this in the video again, but money comes into pathfinding choices in the form of fuel usage. So fuel would apparently seem to be a mechanic as well, alongside those parking fees that we've seen. So citizens will weigh travel and parking costs to compare them to other travel options, as well as walking to see which option is quick, comfortable and affordable. And apparently it's going to change as well based on each age group and demographic. They'll all have personal preferences as to which pathfinding cost they sort of lean into. Then goes on to say, in the case of delivery vehicles, the cost of resources they transport increases the further away that they are delivered, which is really cool. That's very accurate to real life. Import and export costs really influence the price of commercial goods in the real world. So happy to see that that seems to be coming into cities too as well. Then we come on to behaviour. So this refers to the agent's willingness to make dangerous decisions in traffic, such as making a U-turn. Citizens and delivery vehicles are less likely to make dangerous decisions in traffic to cut pathfinding costs, while emergency vehicles have a much more lenient behaviour, so they can navigate the road network during emergencies and make dangerous pathfinding decisions if necessary. So that sounds to me like you could possibly create an endless chain of accidents by having the emergency vehicles responding to the first accident crash as well, and that just keeps happening. I'm hoping that the game doesn't release in that state. It would be funny for maybe the first 10 minutes, but would get annoying pretty quickly, I imagine. So then it comes on to say pathfinding also accounts for the traveller's age group. For teens, the most important factor is saving money, so they seek cheap options when they're travelling. Adults will value time, so they'll always go for the quickest route, and then seniors prefer a high comfort level. So that's really cool. So if you, for example, have a lot of teens living in an area, maybe nearby to a campus, if they're going to count teens going to a campus, or I guess you could do a school as well, then you want to make sure that, there's cheap parking near a school or really cheap public transport. So teens are much more likely to use it, because for a teen in Cities Skylines 2, the most important factor is money. So that makes kind of setting costs of public transport a lot more impactful, doesn't it? Because in Cities Skylines 1, the only real reason to increase the price of a line is just to cheese more money out of it. But now it seems it actually has a factor within the simulation, which is very cool. I'm really happy to sort of see that different demographics have different preferences. It's really fun. And then it comes on again to confirm that resource transportation is affected by the length of the route, as distance increases the costs. So companies try to ship cargo as close as possible to increase their own profit margin. And we also get a really nice view of one of the container ports here as well. Much more realistic looking container cranes, aren't they? And now we can see a freight ship out there in the bay as well. And that just to confirm, the longer you ship resources in distance, that's referring to the more expensive it becomes for the companies. Very accurate to the real world. That's a really cool part of the simulation. So then it comes on to say about lane usage, that in Cities 2, the vehicles will use more lanes. This was one of the biggest criticisms from Cities Skylines 1, that they would all hog one lane when they didn't need to. So happy that that appears to have been addressed, and there's some nice screenshots down here as well, showing all the lanes in use, which is nice. So it goes on to say here about how detailed the simulation is. Now this is all true and it all works as they're advertising it to be. It sounds a lot cooler and a lot better. So in addition to calculating the path to the destination, all vehicles and pedestrians take into account all nearby agents at all times as they navigate the streets and pathways. So they will make decisions affecting traffic flow multiple times while travelling, separate from their pathfinding decision. These include accelerating along traffic, braking to slow down, avoiding oncoming traffic and making U-turns, switching lanes to optimize traffic flow, and making pathfinding decisions when an unexpected event, such as a traffic accident, occurs on the original route planned. So if you get a car crash on a major arterial and it totally blocks that road, all the cars that were due to head down that road will obviously hear, I guess, maybe a traffic report on the radio, and then they'll divert away to avoid that congestion. That is incredibly cool. It does say traffic simulation is much more complex. Definitely seems to be. I'm quite happy with that, actually. It does go also on to say that the game will be taking advantage of multi-core CPUs, so I guess if you have a beefier, better PC, you're going to get, I guess, a better experience with the simulation. And then again, just reiterating that larger populations are much more possible now just because of the improved performance of the simulation. Again, we have to kind of wait and see, right? Another really cool shot here as well, we're kind of seeing some proper outer line suburbia here. So really nice screenshot here of the outer line suburbia, right? Really nice. So then we come down to roundabout behavior, which we've talked about roundabouts in the last developer diary in terms of how they're built. So vehicles entering the roundabout give way to those already on it. That's great. However, just like in real life, vehicles might cut in front of another vehicle already on it if an opportunity arises. This is part of the agent's behavior, which is always looking for suitable spots to improve the traffic flow by changing lanes or sneaking through an intersection at the last minute. Guessing again, that can also result in car accidents. So now we come on to the traffic accidents section, where the likelihood of an accident happening is calculated per road segment and is increased by features such as road conditions, lighting conditions, weather, and disasters. Keeping roads in a good condition, of course, will reduce the likelihood. So when an accident check succeeds on a road segment, so I'm guessing the more factors influencing that particular segment, the more likely a car passing over it is to crash, and then they will randomly lose control. A vehicle is pushed in a random direction, gaining simple collision in physics to allow it to hit obstacles on the way. So does that mean it's going to take out streetlights, or maybe some of our detailing, a fence perhaps, or smashed building windows? So accident sites need to be secured and cleared by police and road maintenance respectively. The simulation halts traffic on the lanes are affected by the accident, and vehicles wait until the road is cleared before continuing on their way. And then it goes on to say ambulances might also be called to the site if the accident was severe enough to cause injuries. I'm hoping that that is an indication and a little nod to a much more fleshed out medical mechanic, which we kind of hinted at in the last developer diary too. Then goes on to say that if clearing the site of the accident causes traffic jams for a prolonged period, then agents will recalculate their pathfinding, which might result in more dangerous behaviour, making U-turns, which again could ultimately cause more car accidents. So again, that could just be an endless chain of events, couldn't it? We'll have to see how sensible it is with that recalculation. It does say as well that if more lanes are free, vehicles will use them to avoid the site of the accident. So just because the car has crashed on one lane doesn't mean that the other 5 lanes on this particular road are all closed. They will just sort of go around it, which again is accurate to real life, of course, depending on the severity of the accident. So now we come on to a section about the parking AI. So usually the most comfortable option for an agent is to be able to park on the lot of the building they are travelling to. If that isn't possible, they will choose either another parking option or a different transportation method, which is really cool. We kind of touched on this before. A lack of parking can lead to citizens preferring other places for activities, such as choosing different locations for shopping or leisure time. So I'm guessing that will also mean that if they choose to spend their time elsewhere, that the commercial they were originally planning to go to will either abandon or suffer some sort of penalty. So pretty important that when you're setting up larger areas that are going to draw more sims to, that you do actually provide parking. So it's not just an aesthetic thing. That's really cool that parking is a proper mechanic and the sims are actually factoring it into their simulation as well. And it's also touching again that different citizen age groups have different preferences when they consider travel time, comfort and money. We've covered this earlier in the diary. Yep, adults mostly concerned about time, teens most about money, and then seniors most concerned about comfort. We also get confirmation here that parking lots come in multiple sizes along with a multi-storey and underground parking structure, which is really cool. Underground parking confirmed, and a much nicer, really cool multi-storey here as well. You've got some benches out the front, a couple more hedges and trees, roads going into it. Just really nice multi-storey car park, much better than the Cities Skylines one. So then we come on to our info views. Again, this is kind of where I begin to tune out, just because I think it hasn't really improved that much from Cities 1 in terms of meaningless numbers and random coloured red roads. But of course, we'll have to wait and see. So info view shows traffic flow and volume in the city as a whole, making it easy to spot problem areas in the road network. Traffic flow will indicate how smoothly traffic flows in the city. High number means that no jams are forming, while low number indicates that potential bottlenecks can appear. Lastly, traffic volume shows how many vehicles travel on the road network at different times of day. High volumes of traffic indicate rush hours. So again, we kind of know at this point that we're playing with a much slower simulation, so it would appear that we're going to have to deal with morning and evening rush hours, which is really cool. It's a pretty fun part of the simulation, that. Then we come on to the road info views, which shows more information about a single road, covering road's condition, as well as its traffic flow and volume. These tools available, it's possible to enhance your road network very precisely. If a particular road has a large volume of traffic, it is most likely a main road, and you might need to keep an eye on it as the city grows, and upgrade to a bigger road to alleviate traffic congestion in the future. This is kind of what we do in Cities 1, you know, if roads are getting busy, it's usually just a case of you're creating a bottleneck and you just need to relieve the pressure of that by creating more connections to a particular destination. That fixes 99 out of 100 traffic problems in Cities Skylines 1, and it would sort of a nod toward that being the case here as well. But again, we have to wait and see before we can really be excited or disappointed about that, depending on your point of view. The road condition also affects accident probability, which we know, and the travel speed negatively, increasing the risk of accidents and slowing down traffic. Yes, we know all this. So now we come on to service vehicles. So when they receive orders from buildings and road segments, they calculate a suitable path to their destination. As the vehicles travel to their destination, they affect the travel path or its surroundings. So for example, when a garbage truck receives an order to travel to the next destination to pick up garbage, they will also pick up garbage along the way, which is fun. Seems to be fairly optimized. And then similarly, a road maintenance vehicle will repair segments of the road as they travel to their current destination, which is nice, so they'll kind of work as they go along. Emergency vehicles such as police and fire have additional rules affecting their pathfinding. Their behavior is more dangerous, quotation marks, compared to citizens, so much more likely to, you know, they're just like real life, isn't it? You know, police car flying down the motorway, outside lane, 90 miles an hour. But also seems to be a thing in cities too as well. And then really cool, if possible, other vehicles will give way to the emergency vehicles by switching lanes on multi-lane roads. So that's really cool. You know, they're going to try and pull over a little bit to let the police or the ambulance through. Very accurate to real life. That's really cool. And the public transportation vehicles travel on designated lines, with the exception of taxis, of course, similar to Cities Skylines 1. Initially, they pick up fares at taxi stands, but with the taxi depot upgraded, they can pick up fares anywhere in the city. So, taxis confirmed for base game, but not cycling. I'm honestly a little bit disappointed by that. We haven't had cycling confirmed yet, and I think someone actually tweeted Colossal Order asking if it's there. But taxis, which were a DLC added with Cities Skylines 1 with After Dark, they're in the base game. A little disappointing to see that, but hopefully the taxis are a bit more fleshed out this time. And then this is an amazing right here. So service vehicle operations can be limited to player-created districts. In these cases, the vehicles only answer orders and respond to emergencies within their designated districts. That is amazing. That is so cool. That was such a highly requested feature, and I'm really happy to see that that's added. So if you only want vehicles, I'm hoping this also happens to campuses as well, which I'm sure it is, because we saw in the gameplay trailer that the campus had an operating district, meaning that it will only pull in, you know, students from that catchment area. So really happy that that's also extended to emergency service vehicles also, and I'm hoping basically the rest of the game can also operate under that designated district. Very cool, really happy to see that. And we also get another shot of the car crash down here too, don't we? So then we come on to traffic between other cities. So we speculated last week that cities might play a larger part in our city because we could trade with them. And we can now add outside connections just by reaching the edge tiles, which is really cool. Definitely a mod function from Cities Skylines 2. And it's going to cost 2,000 to create a new outside connection. Really cool that that's just so seamlessly integrated. So the game also features traffic between other cities from one outside connection to the next. Traffic doesn't contribute to your city's economy, but the traffic can become part of the overall traffic flow as the city grows and highways are integrated into the city's road network. So you're still going to have that dummy traffic passing through your cities like we get in Cities 1. If the player builds a shorter route between two outside connections, the traffic between those cities will change to the newly created option if it is more cost efficient in regard to pathfinding. So again, based on those pathfinding costs that we sort of mentioned earlier. And with that, we find ourselves at the end of this development diary. So pretty cool. In all honesty, there's some really interesting things in there. Definitely how the simulation is now based on 4 different pathfinding costs. That seems like it's a better way for people to move around the city. Also, our first sort of gameplay of traffic accidents is really cool as well. I'm really happy to see a little bit more on that. Hopefully we will. And also the fact that, you know, they're sort of smarter and generally just moving around the city. But, you know, we did see that clip in the gameplay trailer of that truck just lobbing it across the highway. So, again, they can say it's perfect and much more improved, but we have to wait and see, don't we? Let me know what you think below. Is there anything you've seen here that's really excited you? Anything here that's really worried you? Again, let's keep that discussion about the Cities 2 going down below. But let me know what you think of it either way. But otherwise, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.
People are the lifeblood of your city. As they move through it, they set the city's pulse. Not in the cold rhythms of code, but with the variability and pace of a real city. So you should expect the same order and chaos that emerges when countless individual decisions are made all at once. It's a level of vibrant realism you've never seen before, and it's powered by the deep simulation of traffic AI. How people move from A to B in your city is called pathfinding. Previously, pathfinding meant choosing the shortest route by distance, but ignoring factors like travel time and traffic congestion was less than ideal. Pathfinding has changed. In Cities Skylines 2, 4 main factors influence how people move through your city. These factors are called pathfinding costs. People weigh up these costs to decide where to go and how to get there. The path with the lowest cost is the path they choose. But how people weigh up these costs is very different. To help you understand, let's walk through the 4 pathfinding costs. Time is usually the most important pathfinding cost. Everyone will pick their quickest route to their destination if they can. Comfort is another pathfinding cost. Who doesn't want a smooth journey? Wouldn't you avoid tricky intersections if you could? The availability, convenience, and cost of parking will now impact where people choose to go and how to get there. Easy parking is actually the deciding factor for some people when choosing where to socialize and spend their money. That's another pathfinding cost: money. Fuel, parking, and public transport tickets can seriously add up. So it's a factor in where people choose to go and how they get there. The final factor influencing pathfinding is behavior, or how likely people are to engage in risky maneuvers on the road. U-turns, lane hopping, and speeding can reduce travel times, lower fuel consumption, and avoid some of the inconvenient aspects of travel. To keep pathfinding costs low, people will reroute if something happens on their journey. For example, if they get caught behind a traffic accident that takes too long to clear, they'll find another way to get where they're going. Hang on. Traffic accidents? Afraid so. Drivers can lose control and crash their vehicles into traffic and buildings. Yikes. You see, things like wet roads, extreme weather events, and the time of day can increase the risk of a collision. But it's actually poor road conditions that should keep you awake at night. Want to reduce the risk of serious mishaps? Send your road maintenance crew out ASAP. Traffic AI has improved pathfinding so much that you can now grow a larger population. But remember, a big population brings opportunities and challenges. 2 info views can help you plan and react when life takes a left turn. Traffic Info View takes the guesswork out of traffic management. It delivers a real-time overview of how much traffic is on your road network and traffic, so you can resolve problems quickly. Deep simulation transforms the movement of people, goods, and services through your city into the pulsing reality of a living, breathing city. But how people choose their path? That is always a response to the world around them. A world of your creation.